King reveal, as far as like the unmasking of King. So we finally get to see King's face, right? And let me pull up the chapter because we get a description because there used to be rumor because we get black and white, but according to some of the men, there was a rumor saying, so the rumors were true. He has black wings, white hair, and brown skin. So, you know, he's a bit of a darker character, you know. Which is cool. And it kind of reminds me of the Shandorians or what is it, Shandorians, the sky people in the. He kind of remind me of a Shandorian, kind of like Swiper or Calgro, as far as like how you know they're almost like like they're brown people as well, compared to other Skypeans who are like much of a whiter hue. And then he also has a face tattoo, which is kind of like them as well, you know. So I'm real curious about like maybe if the Lunarians were kind of like if they had a stronger connection with Shandorians compared to the others, or like I don't know. But then we see his face tattoo, right? We see the face tattoo, which also again remind me of the Shandians or the Shandorians. Y'all correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm saying that right. But yeah, let me so all right. Now going on to more about King, right? One thing that really stuck out to me, about this chapter was, after King's mask get, cut off, we see the guys talking. They're like, oh, the rumors are true, and then they say there was a $100 million or million berry reward just for tipping the government off to his existence and whereabouts, which I found very interesting. I found interesting because that to me that was almost kind of like when we got that reveal of Sanji and his real bounty, right? It I forgot what the number of his bounty was, but it says uh the reward, and then it says only alive. And it's like how many people have we seen in the series where they had a bounty where it says only alive? Most people it's dead or alive. They had an only alive. And this is like the first time we see a character who you could get a reward just for tipping off the and it shows the rarity of these Lunarians, but it also shows that value kind that we kind of see in the flashback between King and Kaido. We see in like the flashback, right? you know, Kaido says a Lunarian, eh? No wonder the government wouldn't give you up. I saw those endurance tests they put you through. Now, it's it's like what is I believe this kind of showcases the importance of these Lunarians. Like why? Like what makes them so valued? Like we see so a character like Robin, right? She was a little girl. She had a very high bounty. She had a very high bounty just for a child, right? And that's just because of what she knows. But even then, she was never really treated in the way to where like you get a reward just for tipping, like for a tip off. You know what I'm saying? At least not like a significant bounty such as 100 million. So I I believe that the Lunarians are connected to the ancient kingdom or the Void Century, at least like what Void Century in the ancient kingdom. and they must have been a very valuable race. You know, then we get the Kaido and King, kind of a flashback between Kaido and King. And so it says we see King basically pretty much releasing or finding King on this machine, kind of like an MRI or whatever, you know. And it says a Lunarian, hey, no wonder the government wouldn't give you up. I saw those endurance tests they put you through. I'm breaking you out of this place and starting a new pirate crew. What do you say, guinea pig? And then King says, can you change the world we live in? And then we get Kaido without his mustache and beard. We get a straight clean faced Kaido. He says, I'm the only one who can change. Or I'm the only one that could change it. And then he says, what's your name? King says, Auber. And Kaido says, you're strong, Auber, but from now on, you're king. Stay under my wing. I won't let anyone else have you. From this day on, you're my right hand man. Okay. So we get a bit of how they met, you know, and it seems we see these shackles on Kaido's wrists, so he seems to be a prisoner. Auber, you know, we get the name of King, we get the official name of King. Auber is also a prisoner, and but he's, you know, kind of like a lab substance, and maybe Kaido is also being tested as well. I don't know, but I'm kind of trying to figure out where they could possibly be, and it looks more like a very a test site or like a lab, you know, like a science prison. You know, it could be possibly Punk Hazard. You know, because that's the only like really island that we know of where that's also a lab and that also has like test subjects that like the government would do research on. So Kaido and Auber, aka King, were prisoners in the same location and were probably almost. I mean, we know King was a test subject, so I think we can also assume that Kaido was also being a test subject as well. But you know, seeing how his skin and everything is so tough, they probably couldn't really do much with him. But I would assume, this is indeed Punk Hazard. You know, and the main reason why I say it is Punk Hazard is because we know that the smile devil fruit that, let's say, Momonosuke ate was at Punk Hazard. You know, because Momonosuke was stranded on Punk Hazard. Him and Kinemon, they were stranded there, and well, Momonosuke went to Punk Hazard when he got on the ship, and Kinemon kind of followed to go look for him, and that's when he ran in the log, got his body cut in half, and whatever. So I would assume that since that devil fruit was there, that devil fruit that Momonosuke ate was there, and it's pretty much the same devil fruit that Kaido has, you know, except it's an artificial devil fruit, but it achieves the same results. You know, it's like an artificial devil fruit of Kaido's devil fruit. So, be as that may, I would assume that is also where like Vegapunk probably experimented on Kaido, got his DNA, like extracted some of Kaido's DNA, and created the small devil fruit that Momonosuke ate. So I would assume that they're both at Punk Hazard, you know, pretty much as lab rats, and they both escaped Punk Hazard. Now Kaido has his right hand man. Kaido's going off to start his own pirate crew. There we go. Now I would ask, and this is the reason why I kind of want to get more detail about Kaido's flashback. When, like, how long ago was this? You know, Kaido seemed pretty young, right? He seemed pretty young, and I would assume this is years Like, I don't know how how many years, but this was some years before he went to Wino and eventually took over Wino. So I'm kind of thinking this could be possibly after the Rocks D's Beck era. You know, maybe Kaido was kind of floating around. He might not have been as strong. He might not have been his strongest self. You know, at this point, I would assume he had his devil fruit because if he was being, if this is indeed Punk Hazard and Vegapunk was experimenting on him, he had to have that devil fruit to be able to turn into a dragon in order for Vegapunk to be able to extract his DNA and create a new smile, like a new artificial devil fruit, just like Kaido's. So so yeah, so this had to be sometime after he had his devil fruit and after Zebek and before Wino. Now the next question is, when did Kaido get his devil fruit? Was it during the Zebek pirates or the Rocks pirates? I call them the Zebek pirates. The Rocks pirates. Did he? Because if you think about it, you know, I think one of the theories is that Big Mom got that devil fruit for Kaido. So if that is the case, then he might have still been part of the Rocks pirates, and he might have had that devil fruit during his time as the Rocks pirates. And it kind of made me think, you know, maybe Kaido was a real young buck, and he turns into a dragon, and he's a real small dragon, kind of like Momonosuke as a kid, almost maybe a little bigger, because I would think that Kaido was probably maybe in his teenage years, so he might have been more like a teenage dragon, like not as big as he is now, but still, but not as small as Momonosuke, you know, the kid dragon. And what I think this would be funny though, like this this would be funny to me, right? Let's say Kaido's devil fruit is is a devil fruit that kind of evolves, kind of like, I think I said this before, because it's a fish fruit, right? Like it's a fish devil fruit. And if you think about Pokemon, right, how they evolve, there's a specific specific fish Pokemon that evolves into a dragon. You know, you got Magikarp, right? Magikarp, the fish Pokemon. Useless Pokemon. Most useless Pokemon in the first generation Pokemon. One of the most useless, because I would probably argue Articuno is probably as useless, but he has defense at least. Like Articuno at least is has hardened. I think it's Articuno or Metapod. Metapod, I think it's Metapod. But so but think Magikarp, and then let's say Kaido starts off as this useless fish, and then he eventually evolves into a dragon, like a Gyarados. You know, the dragon that we see now. That would be pretty interesting if that's how Devil Fruit work. You know, but yeah. So that's pretty much gonna be